I told her that I was going to do Bible stories. And she said, are you sure? Now, by the time I get through with this, just one story. But since, I'm introduced as a scholar and this and that and everything else, and if you don't know who I am, I have more titles than Barnes and Noble. This little round-headed boy who travels with me and sometimes lives with me in my house in between engagements swears I got 22 degrees. I don't have 22 degrees. No human being could. 7 is enough. From good schools, too. No, not a one of them was University of Phoenix. But what school teachers do is they read from books. Now, in June, I did a conference in Dallas, Texas. I'm not addicted to conferences. Conferences seem to be addicted to me. I did 3 of them in June. Wore me out because I drove to every one of them. Jackson, Mississippi, Cincinnati, Ohio, and Dallas, Texas. Ain't no fool like a... I didn't say old fool. Yeah, I didn't say that. I did not say old fool. Y'all just jumped in on that, and I'm taking your scholarships back. Come down here, y'all call me an old fool. You ought to be ashamed. And this young man got up and did a prayer service for black Catholics, and he had a scripture reading from Genesis. And when he started reading it, I went, ooh, finally somebody gonna take this to the water and make it work. He never said a word about it. So I talked about him. Yes, I did. When I get up in these conferences now and look at somebody and say, I'm gonna have to take you to the water, they all go, oh God, please don't do this to us. Well, I'm gonna take whoever wrote Genesis to the water today. Our lives, our stories. My theme is rewrite the story. If we know anything about cultural competencies, it is that if we don't rewrite the story, we are always the victim of somebody else's narrative. Come on. Come on. And that goes all the way back to Genesis. Anybody in here who thinks that I'm going down the wrong path when I start talking about this story, leave now. Because I am not interested in an argument over your theology. I'm being very, very serious. Because if you jump up and say, you can't say that because the Bible is the word of God, then you ain't black. Because I've never heard anybody black except all of the Bible. Remember how they forced themselves to learn how to read in spite of dangers, trials, and tribulations, and death even, because they said, my, that's a big book. It's got to have something else in there besides slaves obey your masters. Come on. And the minute they said that, they were critiquing the Bible like a very good theologian would. So we're going to be good theologians in honor of our foremothers and forefathers. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bore him no children. She had an Egyptian slave girl whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said to Abram, you see that the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Go into my slave girl. It may be that I shall obtain children by her. And Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. I don't think it was a stretch to listen to her. That's just my opinion. He's sitting there going, well, that's an easy thing to do. I can listen to my wife and everything's cool. And besides that, that was the family tradition. All of his children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, all the way down to David, used to always like to hear that part of it. Go on there and have your way with her. So after Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar the Egyptian, her slave girl, and gave her to her husband, Abraham, as a wife. I'm just reading this. He went into Hagar, and she conceived, and when she saw that she had conceived, she looked with contempt on her mistress. We didn't have to know she was Egyptian. We're going to figure this out with our own cultural competencies. Not who you think you are. I'm his wife, I got his baby, and you just old. Now see, y'all caught up on this story awful fast. There's something wrong here. We got to do something with these folks. I ain't got nothing to say because I ain't one to meddle. Then Sarai said to Abram, may the wrong done to me be on you. Now, I know this is a women's conference, but come on now. Here she says, I can't have no children. You take her. I'm going to lead her to you. She can be your wife. She can have babies. And as soon as that girl conceives, she's up in Abram's face saying, it's all your damn fault. I'm just reading this. May the wrong done to me be on you. I gave my slave girl to your embrace, and when she saw that she had conceived, she looked on me with contempt. Well, yeah. May the Lord judge between you and me. But Abram said to Sarai, your slave girl is in your power. Do to her as you please. Then Sarai dealt harshly with her, and she ran away from her. Now, before I continue, let's get this story in the right context. We all know the mythology, wrongly conceived, I believe, about Uncle Tom's. Well, maybe we don't remember this, but the women who were the stereotypes of slavery were not Aunt Jane's, but Aunt Hagar's. They were quick to take this few verse story and say, you see, and if you start to think about slavery according to what I have just read from Genesis, it all makes perfect sense as a story that explains and justifies behavior. The Egyptian slave girl has a job to do, which is to provide her children for my benefit. And when you hear about these disparities, when you hear about the problems, the inequalities, the new Jim Crow, the slavery by another name, you are hearing once again about the issues of, you my slave girl, you here for my benefit, my pleasure, and my profit. That's in this story. And then you also know from our cultural history that nobody ever took responsibility for it. You can have her as your wife. He takes her. And then there's an argument, and he says, it ain't got nothing to do with me. You take care of it. And she abuses the woman until she runs away. What was Hagar's sin? Being born. Now, this is the Abram who passed his wife off as his sister to one of the regional kings because the king looked at her and went, my, you a fine-looking woman. Or that's my sister. That's your father of faith, too. Now, if the slaveholders had their theology of justification, which says we can do to these Egyptian children, these African children, what Abram and Sarai did to Hagar, and we are justified by the Bible, then we got to critique the story. Because we are in it, but we are the passive folks who ran away from abuse. The angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, slave girl of Sarai, where have you come from and where are you going? That's the theme of the day, ain't it? I am running away from my mistress Sarai. The angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit to her. The angel of the Lord also said to her, I will so greatly multiply your offspring that they cannot be counted for multitude. And the angel of the Lord said to her, now you have conceived and shall bear a son. You shall call him Ishmael. For the Lord has given heed to your affliction. He shall be a wild ass of a man with his hand against everyone and everyone's hand against him, and he shall live at odds with all his kin. Now, that story justifies an awful lot of behavior. But where we have to critique it and rewrite it is, you got to decide, are you still going to be the submissive Hagar or not? Because this story is not about Hagar and Ishmael. It's about the folks that we call today the Palestinians. This story was written to justify the behavior of the Israelites against the people they found in what was called the Promised Land. Abraham has a son, Isaac, but the elder one, who should have inherited all the property and the goods, was Ishmael. All through the Bible stories, especially Genesis, even up to Luke and Matthew and Mark and John, the eldest does not inherit, even though legally he's supposed to. It's always the younger one. Esau and Jacob. Jacob gets it all. Ishmael and Isaac. Isaac gets it all. John the Baptist and Jesus. They cousins, they brothers, and John is the elder, and Jesus is the Savior. You got this thing about Cain and Abel. You got this thing about the brothers. But you always got these women being passive victims. And the economics of Abraham's family is clearly articulated. It's about inheriting property and being property. And we are sitting here today, the inheritors of this legacy of abuse and submission and servitude. You get to rewrite the story. Because when he says, the angel says, your son shall be beyond counting as a multitude, and he shall contend with his kin, and he shall be a source of affliction. That's a prophecy that is self-fulfilling. Esau was the same kind of prophetic figure. Jacob gets the land, the property, and shows off like he's the most boastful child in the world. I got more than you got. And then you look at how he does it to his sons. He doesn't take the eldest and make him the favorite. He takes the baby. You've got this war going on, always over property. We've got to take the story back. They called the women Aunt Hagar and treated her children the same way Ishmael was treated, because you know the end of the story. After he's about 13 years old, and the angels come back and visit Abram and Sarah at the tent, and they say she's going to have a baby, and she falls out laughing because she's 90-some years old. At least Abram was. I don't know how old Sarah was. That ain't the point of this story. She gonna have a baby, and that's when she says, get rid of that woman Her son will never have your property. And again, we all know that story is contemporary. You can take that story and play it all out in politics today. Because after all, your president ain't really American. He really was not supposed to inherit all the stuff that the people thought they had forever. And his people are not supposed to be taken over from the folks who are the children of Isaac. You got to read the story for what it is. It's a justification for behavior today. It was written to justify subsequent behavior, to justify, to rationalize, and to anoint as sacred the exploitation of others against the covenant. For the covenant says clearly, you better treat the alien, the stranger, the widow, and the orphan among you as I treated you when you were slaves in Egypt. And if you don't, I'm going to make all your children orphans. Thus says the Lord. We forget that. We can't forget it because that's how we get the power to negotiate our freedom, our voices, our lives. We have got to hold ourselves to being more than what folks say about us. We've got to say it for ourselves. And in the Bible, the women are negotiating that all the time. But unfortunately, most of the people who preach the Bible stories are anatomically situated like me, and they ain't going to give the women the privilege of the narrative.
Come on. Come on.
Wasn't that the most sophisticated way I could have said that? So anyway, I ain't got no more to say about that because I ain't one to meddle either. I'm being very serious. Every time the angel of God shows up, it's very convenient that the angel of God always says what Abraham and Sarah wanted. And yet, God's mercy is with and compassion is with Hagar and her child, always protected and ministered by the angels. That's what this conference is. But we've got to decide to get up from by sitting beside the spring of water in the desert and reclaim it and make it fertile for our children. That's what she said already. Lynn gave the keynote. I'm just here to tell a few stories. There's that other story about some women married into the children of Abraham. Leah, Rachel, and their two slave girls. When those four women started fighting over who was going to have more of Jacob's babies, it ain't nothing more than that man just got arrested for life down there with all them little underage children. He got a justification for it. So now they over there, and Jacob is acting a pure hustling fool, working for 20 years, shaking them bushes in front of them sheep's eyes, coming up with all this stuff, lied to by his father-in-law about which daughter he was really marrying with that bridal veil over her face, and then he says, you got another 7 years if you want a younger sister, so there. And Jacob, being Jacob, the grandson of Abraham, said, I can work with that. And then when the two women say, you know, I ain't had enough children, why don't you take my slave girls and have some babies with them? Jacob going, work for my granddaddy, it's working for me. And he winds up with 12 children, 13 children. And the thing again in the Bible is you never hear about the daughter of Jacob. All you ever hear about is the 12 sons of Jacob. The girl who was raped by enemy forces, the son of the king of a local region, and how the sons of Jacob go to avenge their sister's dishonor. Go on down through it. Think about Tamar, the daughter of David, who was molested by her stepbrother, and how that started a war. The women have always been exploited sexually and physically for somebody else's pleasure and profit. And now it's the way it's supposed to be, unless we rewrite the story. Now, I'm going to finish up by reading from another book. And I got to say this, and now I'm going to go to meddling. Oprah Winfrey ain't your friend. Thank you. She ain't your friend. Now, she got friends, and she get them TV shows. And I ain't got no more to say about that. Y'all can talk about that during lunch. But she ain't your friend. Beloved by Toni Morrison is one of the greatest books ever put to print. And you wouldn't know it if all you know is the movie. If I had 2 days' time, I would read the whole ending of this book, where Beloved, the demon child, who is the embodiment of the psychosis inhabiting Setha, she has been so traumatized by, in her mind, having to kill her child so that that child would never be a slave. What sacrifices do women have to make in slavery? She killed her baby because she thought that would be better than having that child grow up one day as a slave. And that child haunts her life to the point where she and everybody in her house can see and experience that child grown up. Well, at the end of the book, one of her children escapes. Denver escapes and goes and tells all the neighborhood who had sinned because the slave catchers who were coming to take her, Setha back into slavery, the people in the neighborhood were jealous of her because she and her mother-in-law were so happy with her deliverance that when they saw the slave catchers coming, they turned their backs, kept their mouths shut, and let them go down the road without any warning. And so all these years later, those same people who had sinned by neglecting their neighbors decided we got to do something. So they came and stood around the house and sang one of the old songs of exorcism and deliverance and redemption and atonement, and the demon child disappears. Now, early in the book, and I'm going to finish with this because I like this passage and I think it fits everything y'all are doing today. And it fits the story of Hagar and Rachel and Leah and the other two. It fits the daughter-in-law of Jacob, who was supposed to have a son given her after her husband died. And she wound up having to veil herself as a temple whore, the prostitute, and got her father-in-law to impregnate her so she would still have status in the community. We don't have to go very far to find out that the world has exploited the female body and justified it in the Bible even. Claim it, but claim your voice when you read it. Put your own experience in the story and go, you didn't get that right. It ain't about God. It's about people who wanted to justify their own behaviors. Because the only word you got to believe on that one is, I have come to make it complete, and there is no distinction. There is no second-class citizenship. There is no inequality. And I will always privilege the healing of women in all my ministry. That's the story we got to follow, and we got to reread those old stories in that light. But politically and culturally, this country is still looking at the majority of people in this room and saying, you ain't nothing but Hagar. Now, in Beloved, early in the book, there's this famous passage called the Sermon in the Clearing. And the old lady, Baby Suggs, Holy, the mother-in-law of Setha, played in the movie, well, misplayed in the movie by Oprah. She and Spike Lee should never be in any movie they produce. That's another class. B. Richards, dying of emphysema as a human being, played this role out there on this stump. I'm going to read it. Every Sunday, this old lady with a broken hip would limp out there to the wilderness, the clearing, and all of her people, because she was the designated team leader, the one who had to speak wisdom to them. She sat out there on the tree stump and she called them into the clearing. And this is her sermon. After situating herself on a huge flat-sided rock, baby Suggs bowed her head and prayed silently. The company watched her from the trees. They knew she was ready when she put her stick down. Then she shouted, "Let the children come!" And they ran from the trees toward her. "Let the mothers hear you laugh," she told them, and the woods rang. The adults looked on and could not help smiling. Then, "Let the grown men come," she shouted. They stepped out one by one from among the ringing trees. "Let your wives and your children see you dance," she told them, and ground life shuddered under their feet. Finally, she called the women to her. "Cry," she told them, "for the living and the dead just cry." And without covering their eyes, the women let loose. It started that way. Laughing children, dancing men, crying women, and then it got mixed up. Women stopped crying and danced. Men sat down and cried. Children danced, women laughed, children cried until exhausted and driven. All in each lay about the clearing, damp and gasping for breath. In the silence that followed, baby Suggs, holy, offered up to them her great big heart. She did not tell them to clean up their lives or go and sin no more. She did not tell them that they were the blessed of the earth, its inheriting meek, or its glory-bound pure. She told them that the only grace they could have was the grace they could imagine. That if they could not see it, they would not have it. "Here," she said, "in this place, we flesh that weeps, laughs, flesh that dances on bare feet in the grass. Love it hard. Yonder they do not love your flesh, they despise it. They don't love your eyes, they just as soon pick them out. No more do they love the skin on your back. Yonder they flay it. And oh, my people, they do not love your hands. They only use, tie, bind, chop off, and leave empty. Love your hands, love them. Raise them up and kiss them. Touch others with them. Pat them together. Stroke them on your face, because they don't love that either. You got to love it, you. And no, they ain't in love with your mouth. Yonder out there, they will see it broken and break it again. What you say out of it, they will not heed. What you scream from it, they do not hear. What you put into it to nourish your body, they will snatch away and give you leavings instead. No, they don't love your mouth. You got to love it. This is flesh I'm talking about here. Flesh that needs to be loved. Feet that need to rest and to dance. Back that needs support. Shoulders that need arms. Strong arms, I'm telling you. Can all my people out yonder hear me? They do not love your neck unnoosed and straight. So love your neck. Put a hand on it. Grace it, stroke it, and hold it up. And all your inside parts that they just as soon slop for hogs, you got to love them. The dark liver. Love it. And the beating heart. Love that too. Maybe more than eyes or feet. More than lungs that have yet to draw free air. More than your life-holding womb and your life-giving private parts. Hear me now. Love your heart. For this is the prize. Saying no more, she stood up and then danced with her twisted hip the rest of what her heart had to say, while the others opened their mouths and gave her the music. Long notes held until the four-part harmony was perfect enough for their deeply loved flesh. You got to find the song that heals. And only the women know it.